pleased to welcome Dr. Kombe Kaponda from the Bank of Zambia. Kombe is a leading researcher on the effects of financial technologies and the feasibility of CBDC in developing economies, and the immediate past chairperson of the Central Bank of Zambia's Financial Technologies Working Group. He is certified Digital Finance Practitioner, an active contributor to the global finance and digital innovations agenda, participating in the IMF-World Bank technology community in practice. He is also a founding trustee of the Association of Digital Finance Practitioners in Zambia and the Global Alliance of Digital Finance Associations. Kombe holds a Doctor of Business Administration. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence and Central Banking Conference, Kombe. The title of your presentation is The Promise of Artificial Intelligence in Finance, Case for Developing Economies. Over to you, Kombe.
Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. As Pete mentioned, the introduction, I'll share about the promise of artificial intelligence in finance, and my focus will be in developing economies, SADC, and Sub-Saharan Africa. So that will be my presentation background. I'm a central banker, so I've got a disclaimer, and I think these are my views. That's about the presenter. And I think just to get us started, I think we've had very good presentations from Leon and Chris, and I think I'll probably pick it up from there. So from the statistics and the research, now over 87% of central banks are doing some work with or CBDCs. 11 have already launched now, mostly the island nations, but because of their use cases, 27 are still piloting. But I think if we go back a little bit into history, all this started from the launch of the white paper on Bitcoin in 2008, the global financial crisis that followed in that year. And I think later on, 2019, 2020, wake-up call from Libra and Dime, and where they were piloting how to move value across the world as easy as a text message. But I think we've seen a lot of that happening, and I think once central banks realize that, you know, if Libra or Dime didn't succeed, most of these big tech companies are still working on it. They will be compliant, they will meet regulations, and sometimes you will have to allow some kind of a digital currency to be used. But ultimately, you know, you want safety, you want low cost, and that's how central banks also are working on the central bank digital currency. We know that globally, you know, very few paper money or fiat currency, less than about 8%, 92% of it is in digital form already. And I think that poses a lot of challenges. But just to get some background on artificial intelligence and how central banking will integrate into it. This started quite a long time ago in the 1900s, you know, statistical modeling in finance. That was pretty much a precursor of AI. In the 60s also, we saw early research into exploring how you know, finance can be used, trade, reflation, optimization, a lot of analytics, a lot of intelligence built into there. 1987, Morgan and Chase launched some kind of AI, and I think from the 2020 we've seen now the deep learnings, the advanced AI techniques, and all these we're now leveraging on. To date, artificial intelligence is now rapidly transforming, you know, every industry. But key, and I think for this conference, is how is artificial intelligence, you know, being applied in finance, and more specifically for central banks as they explore central bank digital currency. So the potential is there, and I think from the presentations from Chris and Leon from the BIS, almost all central banks, Central Bank of Zambia is also looking at options of how you can, you know, optimize and use artificial intelligence as you do the design of central bank digital currency, and also just other payment systems, platforms, and initiatives, and how that, you know, just brings in efficiency. In terms of the central bank digital currency, in mostly developing economies, you know, the use cases are different. We're looking at issues of financial inclusion, but I think ultimately we've seen mobile financial services revolutionize that area. Financial inclusion has increased. If we have to go central bank digital currency, how does the central bank digital currency, enhance what mobile financial services has already done? And how can you now bring in artificial intelligence to bring in those analytics, to bring in some language models and manipulate that huge data? Because from the previous presenters, central bank are knowledge institution, so they thrive on a lot of data, a lot of knowledge, data warehousing, and now how can you build intelligence, insights, and foresights from that huge repositories of data? And I think most of my presentation will focus on that. Narrowing down on Sub-Saharan Africa and SADC in particular, we've seen a lot of initiatives in the region. A lot of almost all countries are doing some kind of research on central bank digital currency. Central African Republic has gone ahead and they're using Bitcoin as legal tender. But I think as a region, we realize that even as we develop this central bank digital currency, they have to be interregional trade. Interregional trade comes with interoperability. These central bank digital currencies have to talk to each other. They have to be standards. They have to be protocols that will allow for these trades to move. And I think we've seen that on mobile financial services. We can move value now across Africa. There's Pan-African payments and settlement system that has come in. So how do you now leverage these huge pools of data, especially on mobile financial services, and use it for the betterment and efficiency of financial services? And I think that's where artificial intelligence comes in. We've seen mostly globally tech giants and how easy it is to get traction and people to buy in and use some of these technologies. ChatGPT, for example, the adoption has been phenomenal. But I think for central banks, they are knowledge institution. There has to be stability, and you have to do enough research for you to allow use of these platforms, the onboarding. And I think as statistics show, more than 60% now are doing some kind of work. But as we do work on these central bank digital currencies, how do we now bring in these artificial intelligence with these huge volumes of data that we've already accumulated, more specifically on mobile financial services? If I have my citizens using mobile money to make payments for their day-to-day payments, that information now is being digitized, and you have some insights and foresights of how the spending patterns are. But how do we use now those spending patterns to use artificial intelligence and to bring to give out let's say a small loan, because you have a history of how the spending has been on mobile financial services, and with an intelligent artificial intelligence learning model, you can bring in those insights, foresights, and help some farmer in a report part of Africa, to borrow responsibly, and the model will be able to predict that small loan won't be defaulted on. And I think central banks have to now start utilizing such kinds of insights, especially with the different motivations of central bank digital currencies, because ultimately developing economies have totally different motivations. Developing economies have motivations such as financial inclusion, which mobile money is also helping on that. Efficiency of payment systems. Obviously, the issues of anti-money laundering, combating financial terrorism is key, but ultimately the high cost of processing currency. We've done some research in the region that shows that as high as 19% now of some of the central bank budgets go towards currency processing, from the printing of the notes, distribution of the notes, dealing with sold notes and bringing them back together into circulation. So if that cost can be put aside, central bank digital currency comes in, integrated with artificial intelligence, and obviously interoperable with already existing payment system platforms like mobile financial services, that can be a game changer, because ultimately now the issues of financial inclusions can be reached to the core. Can have all these intelligent robotics that can assist to onboard users, to do financial literacy, and make sure citizens make use of those platforms efficiently with guidance from an artificial intelligence model or a robot, and make decisions to onboard and make use of these financial services. And I think AI plays a very critical role into making that to fruition. Like I mentioned earlier, I think for developing economies, mostly it's digital infrastructure. Infrastructure has to be ready. Digital economy has to be ready. We've seen such initiatives from Committee of Central Bank Governors in Southern Africa, trying to make sure that the region can have robust and resilient infrastructure that can allow value to move across platforms. And I think for us, that's key. We're saying, even as we enhance all that solutions, allow for trade across Africa and across all the other continents, how now do we allow artificial intelligence to come in and leverage on what has already worked? For Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, mobile money has worked, because even with less developed infrastructure, we've made use of mobile financial services, using mobile data to make payments and allow value to move. But as we accumulate all that information, how do we create intelligence? How do we get foresights? How do we get insights? How do we get information that will allow us to lend to people who can pay back, to make sure we have performing loans, to make sure that we've got financial literacy, using AI to teach users to onboard easily. Also, issues of security comes in. How do you allow a model that can allow security on a platform? This diagram just shows in a nutshell how policy management to a digital wallet on a mobile money, security and compliance, user management, and obviously all the other gateways, the commercial banks that come in, the national financial switches, and how value can move from end to end, from mobile to bank and vice versa. And then as you build all that data repositories, how now do you bring in intelligence via artificial intelligence to make sure now you can have insights on that data? You can use that data now to use for cash transfer, for welfare. How do you bring in that intelligence to make sure now even government can allow value to move to the most vulnerable? In terms of feasibilities, AI is bringing in issues of improved financial inclusion, as I mentioned earlier, obviously issues of improved security and fraud detection, because you want trust on these financial services, and trust only comes with minimized fraud and secure environments. Obviously, the issue of enhanced efficiency and scalability, onboarding, knowing your customer, make sure you can trace transactions and reduce fraud, but ultimately also increasing on the personal user experience. You want AI-powered bots, virtual assistant that can allow assistance 24/7 across the year, to allow that users feel comfortable, users can transact, and users can move value and go on with their day-to-day transactions. Further, also financial literacy programs can have AI powered in the background, tools that can allow even the people that are not very financial literate to be aided by chatbot and walk them through the states. Use local languages for people who are not vested in English, and allow for financial inclusion, more people to be onboarded. Allow for accessible features to develop AI-powered solution that will allow for cater for diverse use cases. But ultimately, also you want those platforms to be very secure. AI personal privacy is key now. You want those algorithms to be bias-free. A previous presenter was talking about the black box and how you can prevent biases. So obviously, all that AI, the learning, the biasness, the black box have to be looked at it end to end to make sure, even as this artificial intelligence is being applied, this solution is still safe to use. In terms of my final thoughts, AI has a potential to revolutionize finance. We've seen from the